podcast. You guys should check out that. It's really good. Um, was looking at some of the all-time greats, crashing fighters and stuff. It was really great watching them go down memory lane. That's all I'm gonna say about that for now. Me, I never, obviously, I never shared the square circle. So I can only, I have no idea how that feels. I've sparred, but sparring is not fighting, like for real. Um, I appreciate and I have a lot of respect for not just boxers, but for those who perform at the highest level and to have the access to even be talking to some of these great fighters. And, it's strange, having to say this, but, when I think of Nate Campbell, I think a lot of you guys have never seen this guy fight. You really should check him out. When I think of K9, Bundrich, you know what make these guys special, and I think they know they're special, but what made them special was that, to me at least, they brought added dimension to boxing. I think almost all the boxers of the '90s, the outstanding ones, the '90s, the 2000s, um, you know, they all did things a little bit different to everybody else. The guys, the other guys, around them, was doing things, everybody was doing things about the same way. But then these special people would come along and just do things a bit different. Um, hey, who? Maybe we'll see some of these fighters in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't, but maybe we will. But it's nice to have access to them, to actually talk to them. We're in a different era now where boxing is such that you can actually talk to these people via the internet. I believe that again I differ in opinions from some of these great boxers, and that's okay, right? My opinion is I think Canelo is an all-time great. He's a special boxer in my opinion. And no, I know I'm getting. I see people doing the same thing. They got the Mayweather syndrome on them because what happens is that a lot of times they can't understand why he's doing that. I am even hearing boxers who actually box say this. I even heard Troy Killer Tamer, shout out to Troy King, saying that Campbell kind of quit and he was just trying to protect himself and not try to get knocked out. I think I think Campbell was thinking defensively. I mean, if he was not defensively responsible, he was going to get knocked out. And like Campbell said, he was more concerned about what Canelo was doing to him than concerned about what he was supposed to do to Canelo. So I mean, you know. But this is just my thoughts on the matter, so don't take it too seriously. But I enjoy the sport so much that sometimes you want to just sit in there and digest it, eat it a little bit. You know, we've heard this name Canelo for a long time. It's not even his real name. This is his nickname. And everybody just goes by his nickname. Nobody says Saul Alvarez. This is a fighter that is known by his nickname, like El Finito, right? I don't think Julio Cesar Chavez, people really called him by his nickname much. JC's really was his nickname, but whatever. They still call him JC. They call AJ AJ and EJ EJ. But anyway, Canelo is not just a special fighter, in my opinion. I think Canelo has been taken, like I said, from all the past greats. It was really cool seeing the. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have to do it. I might have to make a video for you guys to see what I'm talking about because every time there's certain boxes that you start giving all of these praise to. I guess other boxers don't like it or whatever, or other people in the business don't like that you give him so much praise to this fighter, and they think it's undeserved. But like I said before, I'm a bit of an OG. You know what I mean? I'm a bit of an old guy. You know, I'm not saying I know everything about boxing. Obviously, I don't. But the one thing I do know is this guy's been schooled well. Okay, he's been schooled very, very well. And what he does very, very well. I'm not saying he can't be beat, but I don't see anybody who will beat him. And Demetrius Andrade is a guy I want to see him tested with. And I don't have a problem with him being tested by all the guys, by Charlo, by Andrade, by whoever, by Benavidez. I know people pick sides. People pick sides, but me, stylistically speaking, I think Benavidez is the easier of them all. I said it and I said it again. I'm gonna not change my mind. And David Benavidez is a very reputable. He and Jose, they're very reputable guys. They're known for sparring people and murking them and shit like that. But they only like the Durrells. The Durrells. It was the Durrells and the Benavidez. They were bad motherfuckers in sparring, right? Everybody knows them for that. But like the Benavidez, Andre Durrell does not infight. Neither does Anthony Durrell. This is why Badu Jack was able to break down Anthony Durrell and disable him and beat him up. They don't have inside game. I'm not saying they can't fight a bit on the inside, but listen to me carefully what I said. They don't have inside game, meaning they're not proficient enough to handle guys who could do their thing on the inside. You need to at least have some inside game. And Benavidez doesn't have that. Shakur Stevenson is developing his. Andre Ward was helping him. I don't know. Even though Andre Ward's not his manager, hopefully Andre Ward is still helping him. So, what I am saying is that, those guys are fantastic at what they do. They are really great outboxers. But as Andre Ward has shown time and time again, to close that distance on him, even though I've seen Andre Durrell versus Yildirim, and he was putting up a decent fight. But again, Yildirim was walking him down because Yildirim is proficient on the inside. He's an inside fighter. So, what is my point? Because as you can see, I just wanted to drop down and fall asleep again. So before I go to sleep, I want to give my point in this matter. Those people who were advocating for David Benavidez to face Canelo Alvarez because he's a big 168-pounder. Think about what I'm saying now. He couldn't make the weight the last fight, which means there's an ill-built excuse if Canelo whoops his ass. Oh man, it was too small for 168. He could get his power around. He should move up to 175, like Callum Smith. Because one thing I'm telling you that's certain is Canelo will back his ass up. And then we will see what he really has. What kind of fight? Oh, he wasn't throwing enough punches. Oh, yeah. Well, let's see how much fight he will have then. So y'all stop punking Canelo, okay? Stop it. The easiest fight for Canelo will be David Benavidez. That's an easier fight than the guy he just fought, who has longer reach than David Benavidez. And David Benavidez is not deviating from what Canelo has been doing to all these longer, taller fighters. He's not going to do it because obviously Canelo is following a system and he's working on it. And he added a new wrinkle to his system where he can damage your jabbing arm by pounding on it with his hands. Okay? So he's picked up another old school thing. You know, they always say beat the shoulder, beat the shoulder. Well, he's beating the shoulder now. And he's found out the effective way to do it, which is by punching between the bicep and the tricep and damaging the shoulder, giving it a hematoma. So he's figured out another way to disable a fighter. And he just keeps on evolving, ladies and gentlemen. So if you think that Canelo Alvarez will be beaten by David Benavidez, somehow, some way, he's afraid to face David Benavidez, who's an out of shape version of Callum Smith. David Benavidez is so great. He throws so many combinations. And when y'all go and you see the fight and David Benavidez doesn't look like how he normally looks, and Canelo's backing his ass up and beating his ass down, I want you to remember what I said. Okay? David Benavidez is in no way, shape, or form. You know who's better ready for Canelo? Jamal Charlo. And he's a 160 pounder. He comes up to 167. He has a better chance against Canelo than David Benavidez. That's fact. Because David Benavidez couldn't even make fucking weight. He couldn't even make weight. Which means he don't really belong in 168. And that's an inbuilt excuse for when he gets his ass beat by Canelo for him to say, I need to go up to 175. I'm just, 168 is just too, I'm too big for 160. That's what he's going to say. Because guess what? The bigger they are, is the bigger punching bag they are. And David Benavidez will be a huge Canelo punching bag. Canelo will run through him, beat him up, and leave him alone. Okay? Because he has zero inside game. He's got outside game. She's a nice, decent jab. He has no inside game. All right? Jamal Charlo would have a better chance with Canelo. But even he is the same kind of fighter as Callum Smith. Same. They're all the same, style-wise. He got a couple more wrinkles in his game, and he's stronger, it seems. He doesn't give up as much. But who knows? Another wrinkle that Canelo might throw in there and disrupt him all the way through. And he's just backing up, doing nothing. So we learned from Canelo there's different ways to smother a guy's offense without clinching him, physically clinching him. So the guys that I think have a chance, the best chance against Canelo are southpaws, which will give him a different look. Demetrius Andrade and Billy Joe Saunders. What do we know about Billy Joe Saunders? Billy Joe Saunders is a fighter who does not take care of his body and health properly. He does not stay on weight. He does not stay in shape. You've got to be well conditioned to deal with Canelo. That is his fundamental flaw. And that is why I picked Demetrius Andrade to beat his ass and run away with the fight. through rounds 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Demetrius Andrich takes the fight. Because why? It might be competitive early. But Billy Joe Saunders is not going to go the full duration of 12 rounds with full energy. It's not going to happen. And he'll lose the fight to Demetrius Andrade. And then Demetrius Andrade will get to face Canelo Alvarez. That's how it should go. At the end of the day, the only fighter that gives Canelo some sort of problem is Demetrius Andrade. And I'm not saying Jamal Charlo can't do it, because he has some interesting footwork. And he's sharp and he's explosive, but it's just his footwork that's the key. But Andrade brings various tricks to the equation. The last time Canelo faced a southpaw was against Erislandy Lara. So Andrade brings certain challenges that Canelo would have to solve. That's the guy Canelo should face, not Billy Joe Saunders. That's my breakdown. Let's talk a little bit more about Canelo. So Canelo is now being compared to all-time greats. When I was listening to podcasts, Lions Killer podcast, which is a good podcast for you guys to check out. They said that Canelo is no Salvador Sanchez. Now, for those of you who don't know who Salvador Sanchez is, Salvador Sanchez, as you can see, I don't really care right now what I'm doing. This is well, let's just talk about Salvador Sanchez. I think I did a video on Salvador Sanchez because I think that Roy Jones Jr. talked about IQ, and he brought up Salvador Sanchez. Not only was Salvador Sanchez a well-schooled boxer, but Salvador Sanchez did some things that modern boxers today take for granted and don't do. So one of the things that Salvador Sanchez did, whenever he was closing distance, because he used the jab very, very effectively, but whenever he was closing distance, he'd use the jab. And if he had to bob under a punch for getting to the inside to land his body shots and come back out, he'd do it. He had a little jig that he would do when he gets in or out, or if he get hit. But Salvador Sanchez was one of those boxers who used his feet when appropriate, fought on the inside when appropriate, fight at mid-range and trade shots when appropriate. But he did everything off of the stick, everything off the jab, everything. And Errol Spence is something like that. Now, to be fair, he was a pretty big featherweight. Okay, he's a pretty big featherweight. So that was one thing. And the second thing is, but his boxing was very good, and he boxed with his feet. What do I mean by that? He used his feet to box. What do I mean by that? I mean, he could circle all around the ring and circle an opponent. You know, he always circled to not just reset, but find an angle to enter in and get his shots off. If you made a mistake and Salvador Sanchez realized he was out of position, he'd go for the kill. Every shot, he'd go for the kill. So that was Salvador Sanchez in a nutshell. But he was also a smart boxer. He would set you up. He would set traps. Most of the time, you'd be scrapping, though. but he was a smart boxer, and he always had exciting fights. There's some things I could criticize him about, but I won't bother. He's known as a Mexican sensation, but technically he did some really stupid ass things, which I don't want to talk about right now. The point is, this is what you can use to build on. When you watch him, you're gonna see certain things that you could build on, right? But remember, he was a featherweight. He was a small guy, right? Big for featherweights, but he was a small guy. And he beat legendary names like Azuma Nelson and Wilfredo Gomez and so on and so on. Yup. Um, but my thing wasn't that. My thing is Canelo in that podcast was actually being compared to him. Now that's the greatest honor when people start. Now they were bringing it up to say, that we not hating on Canelo, but where's his place in history? I've heard this discussion. We've heard this discussion with Floyd Mayweather, right? The difference is Canelo never said he was the greatest anything or anything. Canelo just doing what he do and just provoking this reaction, right? Floyd Mayweather, the same accusations. Oh, he cherry pick. You get the weakest guy. And again, but Floyd Mayweather said, "Man, I'm better than that Sugar Ray Robinson." He said that. I remember man just going to say he said he's better than Sugar Ray Robinson. It's so funny. It's funny how when people say into the atmosphere certain things, Clarissa Shields said that she's the GOAT. All of a sudden, a lot of people come out of the woodworks, especially former boxers, get offended by that for some reason. And there's 100 million younger fighters who will say this. And watch me. I'm going to put it straight to you. Canelo could go on to become the best ever and actually surpass what Floyd Mayweather has done. And he could be the next best ever. He could end up saying, "I'm better than Floyd. Look how many champions I did. Look." And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the problem with people in boxing. If a boxer has done his just due, why are you ignoring all the things he's done and saying, "Oh, he really wasn't this and he really wasn't that"? I don't understand it. I really don't. But people who have been there and done that, they're entitled to their opinion. I'm entitled to disagree, but if I've not been there and done that, obviously their opinion might have much more weight than mine. And I'm okay with that, but I'm also entitled to my opinion. To hear Canelo's name in the same sentence with a Salvador Sanchez, to even hear that is amazing. Now, I'm going to say something, and a lot of the OGs are going to get mad at me. Be like, "You're a traitor, you're a fanboy, you whatever." But I'm going to say it because boxing as a sport evolves. And whether you guys like it or not, I'm going to say it. Canelo is a better fighter than Salvador Sanchez. He does it in a different way, but he's a better fighter than Salvador Sanchez. And he's more skilled than Salvador Sanchez. There, I said it. I'm not taking it back. And for all the OGs out there, they'll be like, "What the hell are you talking about? You don't know shit about boxing." That's okay. That's how I see it. Okay, Salvador Sanchez had what, like 50 something fights, no losses, beat everybody. Wasn't some scrappy fights. One with Azuma Nelson he managed to get him stopped in the 14th round, I think it was. I mean every last word I said, and I can break it down why I say what I say. Julio Cesar Chavez. Canelo is a better boxer than Julio Cesar Chavez. Okay? Now, when it comes to El Finito Lopez, on the other hand, I'm going to say it like this. El Finito Lopez, to me, was a better boxer than Julio Cesar Chavez. However, there is no proof to show that because Julio Cesar Chavez fought better competition than El Finito Lopez, but he was extremely dominant. The only guy that gave him problems was a fighter named, I'm trying to remember his name now. He had to fight him. He had a draw with him. I think he was supposed to lose to him, but he got a draw. I think it was a tech decision draw. I think it stopped early or whatever. And he rematched the guy, and he beat him. But El Finito was a very good fighter. Now, but you would say, but Salvador Sanchez wasn't better than El Finito. Okay, so if you look at resume, yes, and probably Salvador Sanchez is a better boxer. El Finito, probably you're right. Yeah, Sanchez is probably a better boxer than him. But my thing anyway is this, right? That these are some great Mexican fighters of all time. But here's my thing. Canelo's not getting his face busted up by any fighter. Canelo hasn't been dropped by any fighter, right? He has not been stopped by any fighter. You know, he's never come out of a fight with a bloody nose or bloody mouth, right? Not even against Floyd. Now, that's not to say that he's the toughest guy ever, but that says something about his defense. That says something about his defense. Right? And we've seen Julio Cesar Chavez get busted up. And remember, Canelo has faced the very best of his era. He's faced Floyd Mayweather, right? He's faced Triple G, we all know is heavy-handed, right? He's faced Sergey Kovalev, right? He's faced Miguel Cotto, right? The very best of his era. And this guy's never gotten busted up. Not once in his entire fucking career. Okay? I think once he got his eye busted or something like that from a headbutt. But the point is, that's Canelo. His defense is unbelievable. Now some people say, well, Salvador Sanchez had great defense too. You above and we no, but Azuma Nelson, man, tax that defense. Come on now. That was Azuma Nelson's first. That was the first championship fight he's ever had. And El Salvador Sanchez, come on, we're gonna argue now. We're gonna argue some real stuff. Salvador Sanchez had been a champion for a while. And the guy who was moving up in weight, well, Azuma Nelson was the smaller guy. Right? So he wasn't moving up in weight, but he was a smaller guy. You know, Wilfredo Gomez, dared to be great, jumped up from bantamweight, or was it super bantamweight? I can't remember. He jumped up, he fought one fight, I think, at featherweight, and then he faced Salvador Sanchez. He was a smaller guy. He was supposed to get squashed. You know, everybody talk about Carlos Monzon. Great fighter. All right, he's a great fighter. But when he fought Jose Napoles was a smaller guy. So Carlos Monzon beating Jose Napoles. I mean, great fighter, Jose Napoles, dared to be great and everything. But he's smaller. He's a welterweight. Carlos Monzon's longer. He's taller. He's everything, right? It was up to Jose Napoles to overcome all those advantages that Monzon had to beat him. So he didn't last very long because he was trying to rush it and trying to scrap. With all his skill, he was still trying to rush it and scrap. Let's be real. See, my thing is, I'm going to be honest with y'all, okay? Even though I'm a guy that was born into the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010, even though I'm from back then, make it abundantly clear to you guys, right? Make it abundantly clear to you guys. I see boxing differently to how I used to first see it. I now assess things based on what the guys actually did in their fights. What was their game plan? What they were really trying to do. So I don't look at all the big aura and all that stuff. I could, but I don't. And yes, they faced the greats of their time. And when they were performing against them, people make certain excuses about them. Like, for example, right? Let's be fair. If I were to do a highlight reel of all Canelo's knockouts with him crashing guys at the end, y'all gonna say, oh my God, Canelo was a sensational fighter. Look at a one-punch knockout. But that's not how boxing works. Boxing's not about highlight reels. Boxing is 12 rounds to 15 rounds going down. Not everything is exciting like how the moment when a guy is taking out another guy. So you can't look at highlight reels of a guy crashing another guy. That's great. Highlight reels are great. But you got to watch the whole entire fight to really understand and get what the boxer actually is and what they're actually doing, what's their game plan, etc. So I find it sometimes somewhat dishonest when people they want to say that this guy in this age is boring and that guy back then was exciting. And this guy today, he was, look at him. He don't even have the finishing touch or whatever. And this guy, no, you can't do that because see, boxing don't work like that. And you know this. All of y'all out there know boxing don't work like that. Right? Now, to be fair, and I'll be fair, I wasn't a guy that used to talk pound for pound lists once upon a time. And I didn't believe, and I still to this day don't believe, to be absolutely honest with you, and I said it time and time again, I do not believe in, you know, this there's one fighter who's greater than all the fighters ever in the history of, because that's not necessarily a sensible thing to say. There's no really such thing as the greatest of all time. There's no such thing as the best of all time. Why? Because the fighters didn't face each other. If I didn't face, if I didn't face, if I fighter A did never face fighter B from another era, how can I say I'm better than him? Right? I can't really say I'm better than him because I never faced him. And until you actually face the guy, the reality and truth can be. But these guys were so dominant in their eras that we started to rank them, just like how we do with pound for pound lists, right? It's a mythical thing, right? Similar to TBE and the greatest and the best defensive fighter of all time. It's something that writers, usually they're not actual boxers, but writers and fans talk about. Now, to be fair, what really should happen is the peers of the fighters, boxers themselves, people who are actually the people who actually are in boxing, they should really be the ones to build up some sort of title or some sort of recognition for the careers of boxers. They really should have something, not necessarily a rating system, but an honorary system. Of course, we know about the Boxing Hall of Fame, but I mean, besides that, aside from that, something else to sort of reflect the brilliance of certain boxers in certain eras. And I'm guessing they would go with the best of the era or whatever, something like that. Okay. So I truly believe that in boxing today, you know, excuse me, in boxing today, I think a lot of people in boxing today, we really squabble over hypothetical things. They're not really real things. But when we look in the respective eras, we can actually have more concrete things because of who the boxers face, and it always comes down to, in my opinion, who you face and who you beat in boxing. All right, that's just my opinion. You don't have to go with it. It's my opinion, but my opinion is backed by the opinion of people in boxing who've said that. So who you face and who you beat, I think, is a very important thing in boxing, more so than uh, how many wins you've had, how many championship fights, and how many. I mean, there are records for those things, and it's okay, and it's cool and well. But you know, how many? What else they got? How many title defenses and all that stuff? It's who you're facing, who you beat. But to know who you face and who you beat, you gotta actually watch it, all the fighters of the era, and from that know who the exceptional ones were in the era, and then okay, from there you can go. And at what point were they in the era? Like, were they washed up by the time you faced them? Were they at the top of the game, where they some people like to consider in their primes, which is also something I think is overrated sometimes. But I'm gonna tell you why. Sometimes a fighter in their prime is not as good as when they're out of their prime and they're really getting the spotlight and they're really shining. And it's the strangest thing, but I think of fighters like, Juan Manuel Marquez and Bernard Hopkins and, you know, Archie Moore and so many others who outside of their prime actually performed at the highest level and better than when they were in their prime. So it's just one of those things where I think a lot of people focus on the prime because one, the boxer is younger, and so they have what we call the athletic prime, and two, because their performances are against competition that's lesser than the competition they later turn out to face. Rocky Balboa, Tommy Tampa, what's up, bro? Yeah, their competition turns out to be lesser than when they actually face better competition later on in their careers. So say win some, lose some, or the better competition that they face later on in their careers. Take for instance, everybody likes to talk about Shane Mosley's prime when he was at lightweight, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Who did he face at lightweight? Which Hall of Famer did he face at lightweight? He didn't face no Hall of Famer at lightweight. It's when he went to welterweight that and he started facing real names that we actually started to have real fights, right? So he faced Oscar De La Hoya, he faced Winky Wright, he faced Vernon Forrest, he faced Fernando Vargas. He faced Antonio Margarito and Ricardo Mayorga and Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao and Canelo, right? So it's really outside of his prime that he actually was getting the bigger names. And why is that? And this is something I think a lot of people just never understand, which is why you don't always follow prime, even though some guys who just all they depend on is their physical gifting, yes, the prime will matter more. But for those people who are much more smarter fighters and are also fundamentally sound, and they improving as they fight on and on and on, you can't just talk about their primes. Take, for instance, Bernard Hopkins, right? So it's not necessarily that a guy in his prime, and I keep on talking about this over and over again, and people say, "Well, you're saying that to apologize for the opponents of Floyd and blow." And I'm like, "No, dude, this is just what it is. It's true." It's that a fighter gets more and more experience as they keep on fighting. I think of Mike McCallum, for example, at the age of 40, still fighting Roy Jones Jr. and still hanging with him. And just the year before, he was light heavyweight champion of the world. How does this guy have all this longevity? Because he's got a lot of experience in boxing. So he got to be a much more seasoned fighter. And so he learned a lot more tricks of the trade. See, and this is where I come back to Canelo. Canelo is only 30 years of age. He's the same age as Callum Smith. But the separation of experience, of cunning, of trickery, of knowledge he has is way beyond his 30 years of existence. Okay? He knows a lot about boxing. Way beyond Jamal Charlo, way beyond Demetrius Andrade. And Demetrius Andrade really is underestimating him. And I hope he doesn't go in there underestimating Canelo when he does. But the fact of the matter is, Canelo Alvarez keeps on growing. Okay. And that experience, I remember Marvin Hagler commenting on Mike McCallum, who was 35 years of age, facing a 23-year-old James Toney. And Marvin Hagler kept on emphasizing that Mike McCallum had a lot of experience, and experience would be the key. And I remember him saying, look how Mike McCallum separated himself from James Toney is using the stick on him and circling him. He said you could see his experience playing a major key. So it's not always about being in your prime. Roberto Duran was a very experienced fighter. He fought Iron Barkley. Iron Barkley thought, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm going to just beat him down and get him out of there. No, sir. And Roberto Duran was hard to hit. 1, 2. Roberto Duran was happy that Iron Barkley was coming to him, and he was able to drop Iron Barkley in the later rounds of the fight because, again, experience played a major key in that fight. Though Duran was older, I think Duran was what? He was close to 40. Even though Duran was older, I think he was 38, 39 years old, something like that. Even though he was older, he was able to use his experience to stay at the highest part of the game and become middleweight champion of the world, WBC middleweight champion of the world at the age of close to 40. Experience. And remember, Durant wasn't in the best possible shape ever at that point. So he was really relying mostly on his ring smarts and his IQ and his ability to move around the ring. And that's why he accomplished what he accomplished. Was he in his prime? Hell no. And that's what made it even more impressive. Okay. And so it showed that a wily veteran, you can't always outmuscle a wily veteran if he knows how to shift his weight, how to position himself in that ring properly. I'm talking again some stuff. This is some brass tack stuff. It's not about the strongest in the ring. Think football for a second, American football, right? If you're going to tackle a guy, you go low, right? You get below them and you get below the punches. What was Durant doing with Iron Barkley? He was getting below the punches. He was bobbing under or rolling in, coming under, and he put his head into Iron Barkley's chest, pushing back. You can't. I don't care how strong Iron Barkley is. He's not just unless he physically lifts up Durant. He physically lifts him up so his feet can't make contact with the ground, or he puts his weight down on him like that and starts punching him. But other than that, you can see that Iron Barkley, Durant was pushing him around the ring. Why? Because Durant understood I don't have to be stronger than him. I just need to get the positioning on him. And that's what's about boxing. And if you guys know anything about martial arts, you'll know that, especially for women with self-defense, if they're small little women, a woman 4 foot tall could take me down. He could take you down. Why? Because there's certain techniques and skills that involve throws and punches and kicks that will immobilize a taller person. Because one of the things about taller people is they got leverage. That's the correct boxing monster. Leverage. Taller people, they got longer limbs. Well, some taller people. Some taller people got short limbs, but they got a long torso. But nonetheless, most taller people have longer limbs, and that's where you attack. You attack the limb, right? So I kick you in the shin, or I kick you on the kneecap and break your knee. I don't even have to kick you. I could grapple you behind the neck and send you into the ground. I'll make you fall in some of the weirdest plays. I check you on your waist, your hip. I can break your hip with just a small palm strike, very short, compact palm strike and break your hip. So there's many different ways, to and in fact, I don't even have to hit you to damage you. I just have to make you fall in such a manner that you fall and you could smash the tailbone of your spine. I could have I could have dislocate you. I could dislocate a limb or joint by hyperextending it as you punch me or you attack me. So there's many different ways to immobilize and to injure a much taller person than you because they have such long limbs, easier access to the limbs. You see? So, but in boxing, mostly the guys punch. So with Canelo, he saw that Liam Smith, I'm sorry, not Liam, Callum Smith had long levers. So how did he disable the lever? He punched where the lever initially moves, which was between the bicep and tricep region. He was really banging that right hand into his bicep tricep region, and he got a hematoma there, which restricted the movement somewhat, and caused Callum Smith to drop his arm. Yeah. So I keep on coming back to Canelo because Canelo is one of those. He's a very smart fighter. Now let's talk about let's talk about learning from the past, learning from all time greats. So you'll never hear a guy like Canelo, at least I don't know. I haven't really watched the Spanish transcripts, but as far as I do know, you'll never hear about a guy like Canelo bashing the all time greats. None of them. He doesn't necessarily do that. Clearly, he has an issue with Floyd Mayweather in terms of Floyd Mayweather's behavior, but he doesn't really comment on Floyd Mayweather too much. That's a wise thing to do because guess what he draws from? All of his knowledge and all the skills that he's drawing from are some old school stuff. He's doing a lot of old school stuff in a new school kind of way, in a Mexican new school kind of way. And I try to explain to people time and time again that it's not that the old school ways of doing things is something we should do away with. When we say that some of the new school fighters are, in my eyes, superior in many respects to the old school fighters. Now, a lot of old school guys will look at me like, you don't know what the fuck you talking about, bro. I understand. But I am still going to maintain what I say. Because if you're borrowing from the past, okay, listen to me carefully. In this present era, which I think almost every fighter in this present era who is an elite fighter has been doing, because they're being trained by old school trainers, what you end up with is little pieces of these guys, which are key ingredients, which you can use in new school fights. Um, Boxing is a beautiful sport, and we all know that boxing has lineage. And I talked about this many, many a time, so I'm not going to bother about talking more about it. But my thoughts on it is this: it's very important that you do not tear down your lineage. What I mean by that is you never um, say, well, fuck the past greats, fuck the guys that's ridiculous. Those are the guys that you look to, and you've gained a lot of information from, including perfecting the fundamentals, right? So I don't believe that when people accuse me, for example, of tearing down the past greats, I look at them like, that's why you telling me this? You know why you tell me I am tearing down the past greats? This is why you're telling me this. Because you see the past greats a certain way. So when I do this deconstruction of them through giving you the reality of what they are, you are interested, you remember the you remember the you have a visualization of them as bigger than life. You have a visualization of them as the word I'm looking for is not legacy. The word I'm looking for, legendary is still a proper word. The word I'm looking for is the mythos of them. So I like to separate the mythos of a fighter from the reality of the fighter. Remember there was this saying, Willie Pep went a whole entire round without throwing a single punch. Now that's a mythical scenario. It never actually happened. But he impressed the fans, he impressed the public, he impressed the writers, he impressed people so much that somebody came up with this mythical notion that Willie Pep could not be touched, such that he didn't even have to do offense. Right? It's not true, but it's something we say up to this day. And it's what we call the mythos of a fighter. And the mythos of a fighter, when a fighter becomes mythical like that, it shows how great they have become. Okay? So understand that, you know, uh, in boxing, you must separate the mythos of a fighter from the reality. And what I try to do time and time again is paint the realistic picture of fighters and break down or deconstruct the mythos of the fighter and show you where the mythos may have come from. And there's nothing wrong with that, because in sports, you got Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, etc., 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 who are mythical figures. They're legendary mythical figures. They're like the superheroes of sport. You know, for those who know boxing, Sugar Ray Robinson is looked as a mythical figure, as a superhero in the sport of boxing. He's like the epitome. He's the pinnacle. He's the height of boxing. Some people in boxing believe that. Other New Agers believe Floyd Mayweather is the epitome of boxing. He's the pinnacle. It's just a mythos. Okay? You have to now deconstruct that mythos and see how true it really is. So I'm not saying this to put down anybody, but when I speak, I'm not speaking as to say I do not appreciate these fighters, because I absolutely do. I love them. I love to watch them fight. I love what they do. But what I do is I try to be as realistic as possible and give you the real story. And particularly when people are hypercritical of fighters like Canelo and Floyd and Andre Ward, you know, and the negativity that comes to them, I find very interesting. If I were to mirror that negativity to some of the past greats, all of these people go up in arms. And these past greats doing more or less similar things to what these fighters have done today. It's very interesting how people pick sides, but when someone comes with an unbiased way of applying the same thing, as we say, being consistent, keeping the same energy, they come with the same consistent criticisms of people from the past. All of a sudden, I'm hating on the past. So, what are you really saying then? You are hating on the present guys? Okay, then. So, when you got to remind us every time you do a video of some guy 40, 50 years ago, that this guy presently today is not better than, what are you really saying? You're actually giving a unintentional compliment to the present fighter, because you acknowledge ain't nobody in the present sense in a particular weight class that can fuck with this guy. But because you build up a narrative, this guy's a doper. In the case of Canelo, and that's why I titled this thing Canelo. In the case of Canelo, oh, he's a doper. Yeah, he was caught using clenbuterol. Yeah, but he was relieved of that case because they realized, and this is WADA, this is not the WBC. WBC announced it, but WADA found that Canelo actually didn't have the levels of clenbuterol that were consistent with constant doping. But yet to this day, even though Canelo just got VADA tested at the end of the fight with Callum Smith, he was VADA tested again and he is found to be clean. Even so, this was a guy who was the face of clean boxing under USADA. He switched across to VADA because WBC wanted VADA instead. And he was found to have a trace, less than 0.1% trace of clenbuterol. And he was suspended for it, but then the WBC had to reverse that suspension. And the sad thing about it is USADA still is going to be looking for those traces. So if he have a trace of clenbuterol, he's going to be found. Okay? And Canelo's not worried about that because he does not dope. He really doesn't. But because people feel that Canelo always has an unfair advantage, and let me be honest with you, they have a valid point. I'm not going to disagree with that. But because they feel he's favored, look what they did to Floyd. Floyd was the epitome of boxing. He was pound for pound #1 in the world. Okay? He was the cash cow on top of that. And look how they talked about him. In fact, they made up a case that he was using illegal IV when it wasn't illegal because he had a therapeutic use exemption. And they tried to show how fishy it is that Floyd dopes, and Floyd does not dope. Floyd didn't dope. You can't have that kind of longevity and be doping all the time. You would lose some fights and you get knocked, So my thing is that if they did it to Floyd Mayweather, then look how they treat Andre Ward. Okay? Look how they treat, to this day, what has Andre Ward done to anybody? What has Andre Ward done anything that they got to attack Andre Ward? I can understand you attacking Vladimir Klitschko, right? I'm gonna tell y'all why. I'm gonna come with my argument again. I'm gonna show you why Vladimir Klitschko. If you got to remove anybody from that 3 list, it would be Klitschko. I'm gonna tell you why. Mayweather, pound for pound #1 in the world. Andre Ward, pound for pound #1 in the world, undisputably. Right? When they were all together in a group, Mayweather came first. He was pound for pound #1. Then pound for pound #2 in the world for years was Andre Ward. And then who was pound for pound #3? Vladimir Klitschko. That's how it went for years. So if you got to eliminate somebody from that listing, And you want to talk about bringing in James Toney? Hell no, you would not bring in Miguel Cotto. He cannot be ranked higher than those three. But he definitely could be ranked higher than James Toney can definitely be ranked higher than Vladimir Klitschko. And James Toney should have been a first ballot Hall of Fame. So he could even be ranked above Floyd Mayweather based on his competition, if you wanted to. But if you say, all right, undisputably, Floyd Mayweather 1, James Toney 2, Andre Ward 3, how could I go wrong with that? How did I rank these guys when I heard the nominations? I put it in. I said Mayweather's in. I said Ward was in. I said Tony's in. I added 1, 2, 3. But look, Andre Ward never do nobody nothing, never say nothing bad about nobody, and yet he still get that hate. They start attacking Ward. They not going to attack Klitschko. Klitschko, he had 20-something defenses. Against who, Ninja? Against who? Against who? Against who? Shout out to Intangible Boxing, is it? Yeah. Sung Kill Moon's resume is greater than Andre Ward's. Hey, tell me this. Tell me this. Who the hell Sung Min Koo? Never heard of him. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I don't know who he is. I know who he is. But my point is, ain't no a whole set of people know who Sung Min Koo is. They were looking at it like, who the hell is he? So you can't do that. But my thing is, Andre Ward is a name in boxing, synonymous with perfection, synonymous with excellence. If you ask me, and I'm going to still say it again, I'm going to maintain what I say. James Toney does not beat Andre Ward at super middleweight. I believe that. Now, it's opinion, but I can back it up with facts. And y'all heard me do this discussion before. And I know Nate Campbell and them guys, they get news from my channel. I know what it is, so it's cool. So, Andre Ward, you know what I'm saying? 8, Intangible Boxing saying something here. Sung Kill Moon, 2-weight world champion, beat Gilberto Roman. Yes, I know the people, bro. I went through him. Gilberto Roman, Nada Yao Konada, Krakow Galaxy, and Roman's better than Carl Froch, Sergey Kovalev, and Kessler. I can't say that, bro. I'm sorry. I can't say that. They're much bigger guys. They hit harder. They're much more problems. I can't say that. You could say it because you like the small weight classes, but you know that's a small weight class. They small guys. There's a big difference between talking about heavyweights and smaller guys. I'm just saying. Right? And then they're not known globally like that. They're not known in American circles like that. So there's hardly anybody gonna pick. I understand what you're saying about resume, but everything is not just harbored on resume, and you know that. It's based on your performance, how you dissect fighters, how you dissect different styles. You know what I mean? So I can't entertain that notion. It's like talking about, okay, so we're gonna watch 2 ants fight, and then we're gonna watch 2 chickens fight, and then we're gonna watch 2 men fight. I mean, come on now. You know what I'm saying? Size does matter at a certain point. That's why sometimes people don't pay too much attention to the smaller weight classes. And people really start to kind of perk up and really start to pay attention at bigger weight classes, right? So, I mean, nobody didn't care about none of the small guys. The only guy I know that it was a small guy that people used to talk about a little bit was the super featherweight. What was his name? Kid Chocolate. Okay? And that's because he went on to face Tony Canzoneri, I think it was. And he was a lightweight. You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, the little guys, the flyweight guys, you know, those little guys, the flyweights or the, you know, the minimum weight dudes. And it's kind of hard to, you got to understand, people don't really pay attention to them like that. It's really disrespectful. It's really wrong. But it's like they so small, you know what I mean? You know, my dude Wenyan Minyorthan, who I still am a fan of. Fuck all the other people. Yeah, he lost the fight, but so what? He's still very crafty, very skilled. I like him. You know what I'm saying? And he's a minimum weight. He's a straw weight, right? He's a small dude. You know what I mean? I like him. I like his style, everything. But how many people in the world I'm talking about in the known world, like Europe and United States of America, ever heard of this dude? They don't follow him like that. You know, you gotta have some kind of star power or something for people to know who you are. That's like some guy who really got abilities and skills, really got abilities and skills, just never got the shot, and he's never seen the light of day of television. But he's got a lot of ability, mad skills, probably could beat some of the top guys in the world if he was taken along properly. Right? There's some guy out there like that, you know, that didn't get shot and made it out of their area, maybe their ghetto or their hood or whatever. But you see, you got to understand that's life, right? So I'm not disputing you that he may have a better resume, but it is what it is. Intangible boxing says nobody cared about the small guys because they aren't American dominated. Maybe it may be that bias, but the point at the end of the day is sadly, this is the reality of the situation. Ain't nobody gonna say everybody know who Andre Ward is worldwide, globally. People know at least they know who Andre Ward is. This dude is not known, and that's sad. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's very sad. Intangible boxing, and just if you ever watched the Lion Killer podcast, they were talking about Harold 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 Wilson, right, from Murderers Row. Hardly anybody knows about him. How many people talk about Burt Lytell, Murderers Row again? You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. It is what it is. If it wasn't for Burt Sugar, right, bringing to our attention Sam Langford, ain't no motherfucker would have known about him. You know what I mean? So it's what it is. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad. Langford made it in the Boxing Hall of Fame, and maybe one day Sun Kill Moon, who's a goddamn great fighter. Okay, we all know this. Okay, it's Thailand. Is it Thailand? You from? Or Korea? I think it's Korea. One of them. I can't remember. But he's a good. I mean, he was an excellent fighter. He was a good fighter. Right? We all know this. Right? And we got guys, for in the Boxing Hall of Fame and shit, who a lot of people don't know who the fuck they are, right? A lot of people, because they in the Boxing Hall of Fame, but nobody knows. In fact, on the same card of the Boxing Hall of Fame, let's be real, there are two women on that card, two women who are inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame who I never knew who the fuck they were. Go check them out. I can't pronounce their names right now, right? One was Tiger something and whatever. But the point is, they got in, right, in a special category. Okay, is what it is, So, you know who got in on the Boxing Hall of Fame too? The dude that died, Duran beat him for the junior welterweight title. Forgot his name right now. Slipped my mind. He got into the Boxing Hall of Fame posthumously. You know what I mean? Is what it is. I mean, how many people know who he is? He was an all right fighter, but he made it into the Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm trying to remember his name. For the life of me, I can't remember. Remember Duran beat Barkley, but he beat this guy. I think he faced Hagler right after he had beaten I just can't remember the guy's name right now off the top of my head, but you guys know who I'm talking about. I think he's the guy that actually beat Wilfredo Benitez. He was on a tear. And he ain't got a lot of fights. I think he got about 18 fights. And he died. He was killed. And he made it into the Boxing Hall of Fame posthumously. So that means Diego Corrales could get in there because that guy was good. He beat some names. But, I mean, Corrales was like, But it is, I'm just saying. So it's like, I'm not saying that Sun Kill Moon shouldn't get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Fuck no. He probably is a first ballot Hall of Fame. But do understand if he isn't he in the Boxing Hall of Fame already? Not him. Well, I can't even remember. But my point anyway is My point anyway is this: that Andre Ward deserves to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. No, no, if buts or maybes about that. And for people to be going in, oh, Andre Ward, he shouldn't be in the box. What the fuck you talking about? Vladimir Klitschko shouldn't be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. That's the one pick out of all the picks. I picked everybody else ahead of Vladimir Klitschko. That's how it went. Vladimir Klitschko, what has Vladimir Klitschko done? Like, what has he done, really? Yes, he's had, what is it, 27, 28 championship defenses or something like that, right? Great, great. Like Triple G. Triple G's got a number of defenses, right? Great. But who has Vladimir Klitschko faced that's just like a Sergey Kovalev? Who has he faced? Where is his Sergey Kovalev? He doesn't have that. Okay, well, where's his Carl Froch? He don't have that. Okay? Let's be real. When he stepped up to the plate and faced his Sergey Kovalev, he got knocked out. When he stepped up to the plate and faced his Carl Froch, he got knocked out. Right? Tyson Fury. I mean, Tyson Fury was much younger than him, but nonetheless. And then Anthony Joshua came after, right? And then Lamont Brewster. Like Lamont Brewster beating you? You was beating his ass up. And then, oh my God, let's not talk about that first time he got defeated. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. We talking about zero reputation people. Like people who should not be stopping Vladimir Klitschko. He punched himself out, I think, in that fight. Right? My thing is, no, man. You can't, like, no, man. Like, I mean, Klitschko, I mean, if you're going to remove James Toney from the listing, then for God's sake, Klitschko shouldn't be in there. But they did it because Klitschko, Ward, and Mayweather are of the same era. I think they inducted people from the same time, like what they did with Tito and Oscar, like what they did with Ali and Wolf, right? They take the same people at the same time and they put them in there. So I think that's what's happening because there ain't no other reason James Toney not in there. James Toney should be in there. You know, James Toney should be in there. They should remove Floyd Mayweather. Exactly. No, Boxing Monster, I actually get what you're saying. Everybody that had a huge uproar if Floyd Mayweather was removed, right? Nobody saying, I mean, some people in the boxing community saying something about James Toney, but hardly anybody saying anything about James Toney like that. But it would have been a huge commotion if they had removed Floyd. It'd be like, oh, look how they doing Floyd over. But they're not saying that for James Toney. And again, Lion Killer podcast made that point. And James Toney, come on, man. For real. Man, James Toney should have been in there. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. They're the people who do their thing and whatever. And I don't know what this, you know, you never know what's really going on in the background because they never tell you the criteria for how they judge things. So it is what it is, Boxing Monster. But well, come on now. Good point, Boxing Monster. Good point. They should have had, you know what they should have had? Some people would have been pissed. But they should have had Timothy Bradley, Andre Ward, and Vladimir Klitschko. Oh, that'd trip up a lot of people. I would have loved that shit. Everybody like, I'm first ballot Hall of Famer in the Floyd. You know how Tim is. Tim wouldn't have had the last of that shit. And you know the sad thing about it? I gave y'all guys like inaccurate information. James Toney actually retired from boxing the same time Floyd and Andre Ward and Vladimir Klitschko retired from boxing. So I don't know, man. I don't know how you could do James like that. I mean, come on, man. For real. Now I think about it, you know, I've been thinking about it for a while. That's just my thoughts. I don't know. I'm just a fan. So, yeah, man. I mean, back to Canelo. So, oh, man. You know, different fighters have different styles, as we all know, and it's a composite of other styles. And of course, the really great trainers, they look at old school stuff, right? And so, um, hold on a second. I just gotta go use the bathroom, come back. I gotta watch myself. Yeah, for real. Yeah, so Canelo has beaten 15 former or current world champions, right? That's where he's at now. Uh, and not beaten. Sorry, my bad. He's faced 15 current or future. Dog, did you wash your hands? Yes, I did. I use a hand wipe. A hand wipe. Yes. So he's beaten 15 current world champions. All right. So not beaten. Sorry, what the fuck I'm saying? He faced 15 world champions. Right. He's beaten 14. Right. So people have been asking the question, and I gotta say this, man. One of the greatest fighters of all time, obviously, was Julio Cesar Chavez, and to see Julio Cesar Chavez in the corner of uh, Canelo says so much about how Mexicans support Mexicans. Look how Mexicans support Mexicans. Look how Latinos support Latinos. You know, and I ask y'all, why is it we hate on our own? I'm not talking about you guys because you guys probably are not black, but why is it black people hate on their own like that? Why we get so jealous of another black fighter? Look at how Julio Cesar Chavez be moving with his own people. Why is it that the black brothers be so divisive with one another? I don't understand. You talk about yourself as we have all the LDBC groups and stuff. I'm asking. I'm not against the LDBC or anything. I'm just asking this question. Why is it that you brothers get jealous of another brother and y'all start going in on him? Right? Why do you guys do that? I don't understand that part. Right? Chavez be hanging with Canelo. Chavez back Canelo. Chavez be just talking with Canelo. Chavez be supporting Canelo. Some of the other, but there are Mexican guys out there who have been, attacking Canelo. And some of them have been critical of him, which is all right. That's fair. And I look at how people use that to run with it. You remember the arguments? I'm going to show you all something. And y'all might wonder, well, why am I backing Canelo so much? Because I see I just think he's good. So I'm just going to put forward some arguments. Y'all don't have to agree with me. They first said, hey, man, Canelo be fighting all these old fighters. He just cleaned up all these old fighters. So he goes and he fights young fighters. A young fighter in Callum Smith. He the best. He really, really young. He's just the same age as Canelo. They say Smith is dog shit. At the end of the fight, Smith, he the weakest. he the weakest. He the weakest champion out there. All right. They say Canelo, man, he be using steroids. Callum Smith said, oh no, he don't really hit that hard. But man, he's good at making you think because he mixes up his shots, etc. You know what they say about it? I seen them going around saying Canelo weakened Smith somehow, somewhere. I'm like, what the fuck? They say Canelo, man, he's a cherry picker. And they always bring back up who? Rocky Fielding. They bring up, oh, when Demetrius Andre left the 154 and Liam Smith pick up the belt, then Canelo come in. They say he's a vulture. He just pick up scraps. I'm like, God damn. The man left. This is the other one. I got plenty, and some of it has credibility. Let's be real. There's some of it has credibility. So let's go through it. They then said, "Oh, he don't like fighting the best." None of this makes sense, by the way. But he don't like fighting the best. He don't like fighting the best. All right, cool. I mean, don't like fighting the best. So Callum Smith's not the best. GGG's not the best. Clara's not the best. Mayweather wasn't the best. Why would you want to face Floyd Mayweather? Why would he want to face Floyd Mayweather? A young fighter aspiring to face Floyd Mayweather. If he don't want to face the best, why is he facing Mayweather? Why did he take on Erislandy Lara? Why, when he was a young fighter who was challenging himself by facing Austin Trout? This is what they say. Austin Trout ain't nobody. Look how he get beat by Charlo. Look how he get beat. Yeah, but he gave Charlo one day a tough fight. Intangible Boxing says thoughts on the only big fight coming up this year. Kazuto Ioka versus Kosai Tanaka. You love them Japanese boxers, boy. Super Feather, right? That's Super Feather. I'm gonna check it out, bro. Keep promoting, brother. Do your thing. Yeah, Kosai Tanaka versus what's the name? Tanaka's supposed to be the dude. Ioka. I know they're both super featherweight, and I think they're both undefeated. Isn't that correct? I've seen a little bit of them. And you think that's the greatest fighter? Okay, we'll see. It's a unification, so it should be good. I don't really. One thing I got to give about the Japanese boxers, they got some real technicality. You can see they have the technical skills. Naoya Inoue, hopefully he faces sometime soon. What the Filipino guy name? I forgot what the Filipino guy name is now for the minute. I really want to see that fight. Super flyweight. Okay, it's one of them. WBO super flyweight Kosai Tanaka is campaigning to become the fastest 4-division world champion in boxing history. 16 fights. All right, cool, brother. We're gonna watch to see. We're gonna watch to see it. When is that fight, by the way? When is that fight? Now let me keep it going, right? So try to remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, so getting back to what we were saying here. Kazuko Ioka is 25-2. I thought he won both fights. He officially lost were against Amnat Royaron and Nani Nietis, December 31st. Oh, old years. He's not a champion? Okay, so I'm thinking a different weight class. See, I don't even follow these guys enough. I saw their names, but I can't remember who they were. You've been telling us all about Kosai Tanaka, and you all high on him and everything, so it is what it is. Yeah, so back to what I was saying. Oh yeah, those Japanese guys, they got some technical ability. I don't know how tough they are. I don't know how strong they are. But Japan's got their stuff done. Their boxing buzzing, man. They love their boxing, and they be supporting their own. And I think they'll have crowds for sure. So that should be good. Yeah, back to what I was saying, which I can't remember what my trend of thought was. Kazuko Ioka is a champion, WBO super flyweight champion. Tanaka was the WBO. No, I'm not talking about was a champion. Is he? Who is the champion right now? Is there are there two champions right now, or there's just one? There's just one, right? Oh, yeah, WBO champion. Okay. Aoka beat Aston. I don't even know who the fuck this guy is. Aston Palict or Polite or whatever his name is for the WBO Super Flyweight title. Brother, you following stuff that I don't even you like following manga and anime right there. You know what I mean? It's like that, you know. It's exclusive in it. You're having fun watching it. Man, you enjoy, man. You enjoy the smaller weight classes. That's not necessarily my thing. I'm not really into I do watch more generic wide scale stuff. I know definitely I want to see Casemiro versus Inui, but they're much bigger guys. They're bantamweights, I believe. So that's a much bigger weight class. And the bantamweights look like they're big now. They're not coming in nowhere near a bantamweight. They coming in like super feather. You know what I mean? So I would love to see that. Yes, I know Roman Gonzalez versus Juan Francisco Estrada is the rematch is official. Yes, I know about that. That's gonna be a good fight. Even though I find Francisco Estrada is not as sharp or tight. You know, after all those years, he's sloppy as fuck in my opinion. But it is what it is. We will see how it turns out. I hope that Roman Gonzalez might beat his ass this time. He might beat his ass this time because Roman Gonzalez keep it nice and tight. He just fought a boxer, and Roman Gonzalez might take that one. He might take it because man, Francisco Estrada looks sloppy. Man, he looks sloppy. He get hit too damn much too. He a smart fighter, but still, that's a good fight. That's a good fight. I've been following that one for sure because it's on the zone too. I know it's gonna be. They're gonna feature it. You know what I mean? So you like the lower weight classes? You're more preferential to the lower weight classes or something? Cause you be following them like a motherfucker. I haven't been I haven't been following that shit at all. I've been watching undercards a little bit, but not really a whole lot. Estrada is very crafty, bruh. His boxing is sloppy as fuck. It's sloppy. He's sloppy. You hear me? You notice how, and for a low weight class like that, he's supposed to be sharper than that. And no, his footwork, but Estrada's defense leaves a bit to be desired. His footwork is all right. Estrada's like a poor man's version of Juan Manuel Marquez. Juan Manuel Marquez had elite movement, very precise punches. He got caught sometimes with punches, depending, but he was an elite fighter. You know what I mean? And Estrada, I just don't like it. It's sloppy. He's sloppy. And Roman is so fucking precise, you know. He's very precise with what he does and very surgical in what he does. For a small guy, he's really, you know, he's very professional and you know, I like him, appreciate him. And you know, back in the day, I would have preferred Estrada beat his ass, but Estrada he has not grown as a fighter like how Gonzalez has grown as a fighter. Even though Gonzalez is still one dimensional somewhat, but Gonzalez, you know, he's grown more as a fighter. When he really gets you and he cuts off the ring and gets you, he really puts those combinations together nice and crisp and good. You know, it's just that the guy who faced Roman Gonzalez actually was a very good boxer. I forgot what his name is. He was also a Gonzalez, wasn't he? Israel Gonzalez, I think was his name. It just came back to my mind. Israel Gonzalez. I want to see more of Israel, actually. Estrada can't be very sharp. He hasn't grown as a fighter, bro. He hasn't grown as a fighter. Against Sanchez Visa in the first fight, Milan Milendo, etc. He was extremely sharp and efficient. In the Quadra second fight and the Beeman fight was sloppy. He was very sloppy. He did not impress me at all. Yeah, Israel Gonzalez. Yeah, see. I didn't even see what you said. I remembered him. Israel Gonzalez. He gonna be a good fighter. He gonna be a good fighter. I like him a lot. He just need to develop more of his game, you know, as he's boxing. But he's got some good skill. He really does. And that's the sad thing about boxing that I try to explain to people. There's actually a lot of good boxers who never really see television, who it just never happens for them, and that's what I could try to explain to people. It just is what it is. And some people, they pass away, they get shot or whatever, stabbed or whatever. But it's really sad. There's a lot more. There would be a lot greater talent if people could have made it to the point where they could be seen by the world. Which is why when you spoke about Killmoon, right? Killmoon, you know, it's tragic. I mean, the only way for you and me and other people to appreciate, to get to see, for other people to see this guy and see him in action and appreciate him, is for us to actually pull back out from the old archives, old stuff, and let people see who this guy was, see who these people were. You know what I mean? Because again, even in our time, as you are correctly showing, there are tremendous fighters in smaller weight classes who are still not getting that eye on them. They're not getting that attention on them, especially in the American community or the American world. And since America still is, to a great extent, the mecca of boxing, it really is imperative that we bring these things to people's attention and we do videos on them. Just do videos on them. I spent most of today talking to you guys instead of doing video. I planning on doing like 2 minute, 3 minute videos on different things, but you guys just give me ideas to showcase different kinds of boxes from, with different dimensions and just show the beauty of them. I like to talk about Canine Bondridge because Canine Bondridge had the exact same dimensions as Sam Langford. Canine Bondridge fights at 154, okay? And he's got 72-inch reach. He's 5'6". He's a short guy. He's shorter than Floyd Mayweather. And this guy became two-time 154-pound champion. And the second time he became world champion, he was 41 years old. He is the oldest 154-pound champion. And you guys can go check out his channel. He's launching things and he's doing his thing. And I support him 100% because it's phenomenal. And remember, this guy had almost no amateur experience. You know what I mean? So I like to talk about these things a lot. Another guy who's phenomenal guy was Montel Griffin. Montel Griffin was 5'7". He had a 70-inch reach. And this guy was fighting at light heavyweight and became light heavyweight champion. And now, at the age of 50, if you see this guy shadow box, you'll be like, what the fuck? Is he 50 years old? I mean, he's better than Roy. He's better than Tyson. He's still got the skills. He's still got the footwork. I don't know how long he can maintain it. But he's like, man, I need somebody, man. Well, let's go in an exhibition and let's do this. He's going to be fighting the cruiserweight, ladies and gentlemen. 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. That's fucking phenomenal. Okay. He's got a reach disadvantage. In cruiserweight, he's going to have a reach disadvantage and he's going to have a height disadvantage. And that motherfucker, trust me, he got skills. He got skills. And a lot of people don't really talk about Montel Griffin. Yeah, okay, he didn't really beat Roy Jones Jr., but he was giving him problems, right? Because why? Because he used to jab upwards. Most people, they jab across or they jab downwards. He jab upwards, and he arrests you with his jab because it's a weird angle he comes at. So he kind of gets past your reach because he's always underneath your reach. You see what I'm saying? Roy knocked him out with an uppercut in the rematch, but it is what it is. So, and Montel Griffin's the only guy that beat James Toney twice. The first time, I thought James Toney won, but it was a close enough fight for a guy that small to be giving James Toney 5'11" all that problems. And then he comes back in the rematch, and they were much older and everything, but he comes back in the rematch at cruiserweight, or was it light heavyweight? I can't remember. I think it was cruiserweight, and he comprehensively beat James Toney. And my point being that, this is what boxing is about. Boxing is not necessarily about knocking out a guy or how much power you got. It's skills. It's skills. It's skills. You see what I'm saying? It's skills. And, ain't nobody really talk about that. But Montel Griffin from the Detroit area, from the Midwest, you know, and everybody talk about James Toney, but they don't really talk about I mean, he didn't beat a whole set of guys like James Toney did. So obviously, James Toney, his record speaks for itself. But I'm just saying, Montel Griffin was something too. And if they're going to induct Roy into there, they should induct Roy, James Toney, and maybe Montel Griffin. Thinking about the man and what he has accomplished, think of K9 Bundridge and what he's accomplished. Cornelius Bundridge, you know what I mean? I mean, and you hear these guys talk stories, they add their stories and stuff, and it's fun. I was listening to Nate Campbell, you know, uh, talking about his trainer fought the guys from Murderers Row. Harold Wilson. He faced Harold Wilson. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's crazy. So, um, it's great to it's great to listen to these guys because these guys literally live this stuff. It's nothing like listening to them. But of course, if you can, go watch the fights. If you can find footage on them, you go watch them. Some of the fights don't got no footage because wasn't on TV. It's sad, but it is what it is. Ow, frick. You might quicker get a Willie Pep fight than sometimes some guy from Murderers Row. It can be hard to get, which is sad. But from the little footage we got of them, sometimes we get some remarkable shit, man, to break down and understand. Uh, so back to Canelo, because this is all about Canelo. So I hear people make excuses all the time about, Canelo. They got lots of excuses for him. And me and Troy Killertainment, me and Troy King, we agree on this thing. That you ain't just gonna go in there and beat Canelo. If Demetrius Andrade feels it's that easy, he don't have a rude awakening. And if he thinks his legs gonna get him through that fight, he might have a rude awakening as well. It's something which you gotta figure out how to fight Canelo in the pocket. That's what Floyd did. He didn't go all around the ring having Canelo chase him around like Aristotle Lara tried to do. He don't catch up with you eventually, especially when he hitting you to the body. So, and now he's gotten more efficient at cutting off the ring and cutting you off. So I think that best way to beat Canelo, you gotta fight him at his range, and you gotta show you superior to him at his range. And if you just exclusively can fight on the outside, you're never going to be able to do it. Never. Because you didn't practice doing that all your career. You got to be able to fight him at mid range. And I think that guys like Billy Joe Saunders and guys like Demetrius Andrade, they have the wherewithal to do so. Triple G also had the wherewithal to do so. That's why even when Canelo was beating his ass, in the second fight, he still had some sort of response for him because he was specialized in fighting at mid-range. So anyway, that's what I got for people. It's really good to talk about this dude. I don't see everybody talking about Canelo now. That's because he really is that big. He's really that big a fighter. And his name is only going to get bigger. Mid-range fighters like Canelo, Lomachenko, Pacquiao, that tend to be the most exciting fighters because mid-range is a place where the other guy can hit you, you can hit them, and so it creates for exciting action-packed fights. Doesn't always happen because Canelo was dominating Callum Smith. When he was dominating him, Callum Smith had no answer really at mid-range, even though Callum Smith tried to answer him in mid-range, but Canelo keep on catching the punches or sliding or rolling, slipping, getting under, or So it is what it is. But he did get one or two good shots in. And that's just the way how that goes, right? You guys got to understand, styles make fights. Styles make fights. Okay? So what I mean by that is If you have a style that's not conducive to another style, actually some people actually realize this in the fight itself. I heard who was it? I think it was Sergio Martinez, or was it Chris Mannix? I can't remember which one, saying that was a bad style matchup for Callum Smith. They got it. Styles make fights. If you're a rangy fighter, right? And you're fighting a guy who's specialized in getting to the inside or to mid range where he's comfortable and fighting you, you better have something. You better have something for him when you get mid range. If you don't have something for him when you get mid range, if you're not an Errol Spence, for example, you're in problems because he's not going to give you your preferred range. That's not boxing, right? And that's why I argue that Andre Ward would beat James Toney. Okay, I argue it because if there's one thing we know about Andre Ward is he's proficient at fighting at any range. He can fight inside, outside, and mid range. Now we recently saw Roy Jones Jr. fighting on the inside, which wasn't bad against Mike Tyson. But Roy Jones Jr. most of his career wasn't known for fighting on the inside, right? He ride punches when you get close up to him, but he wasn't known for fighting on the inside. He was an outboxer. He fought exclusively on the outside, right? And why this is important is because when you're only specialized in one range and you're not proficient in the other two, these things happen. You face a Canelo. Canelo's not known as a proficient outboxer. He's not a guy who circles an opponent. He doesn't fight on the outside or off the back foot. He can do it, but that's not what he's proficient in. He's proficient in mid-range and inside fighting. All right? So he still has to develop his outside game a little bit more and get those feet moving a lot more. He has to. That's where his weakness lies. But to be able to exploit that weakness, first thing you got to do is dominate him in mid-range. You got to, as Callum Smith, they had the right game plan. They understood that he had to respect them and they had to have something for him. The only problem was they never worked on their mid-range game. Their mid-range and inside game is still lacking. So when you guys tell me about, Charlo beating Canelo, I can't understand. I can't fathom it yet because I don't see Charlo being very proficient in his mid-range game. When he's worked on that and he's really good at it, then I can say, okay, so if Canelo comes mid-range, Charlo gonna have something for him, at least be a little bit competitive so that until he can get him back outside at the end of his jab. That's where Charlo is most dangerous, at the end of his jab, on the outside. That's how he tries to keep guys at bay. But the guys he's been facing as of late have been able to get past his jab and get to the inside, in which he had to have an answer for them. And he's had, to this day, so far, he's had a good answer for Derevchenko and for Brian Adams. Is it Brian Adams? I think his name will be Brian Adams. I think so. So, yeah. But when we're talking about boxing again, you got to understand range is a very important key in boxing. It just is. Yeah. Anywho's, man, was good talking to you guys in Tangible Boxing, man. I'm going to catch you later. It's always good to hear you talk and add to the discussion as well as Boxing Monster. It's really good, man, to see you talking there. Shout out to Tommy Temper. Tommy Temper be mocking my ass with Rocky Balboa. How do I hate Rocky Balboa? Oh my God, the Rocky series still goes on with Creed, and still it's the same baloney. They don't choreograph the fight scenes very well. The guy who takes the most punishment ends up winning the fight. That's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. That's some Hollywood bullshit, man. I would love to see a realistic fight. You know what? What was a pretty realistic fight? Will Smith acting in Ali. That was pretty good. That felt like real fighting to some degree. Yeah, Will Smith versus Ali, but of course that was a documentary sort of film. So is what it is. I'm gonna catch you guys later. I am what you need. Of course, I also love Raging Bull. I'm a fan of that one too. Jake LaMotta's story. Great story. Y'all should watch it. If you guys got any other suggestions of good boxing movies, let me know. Till then, what you need is out of the building. Peace.